Hello, and welcome to Fluent English Journey, the channel where we help you improve your English step by step. I'm really happy that you are here today because we are going to talk about something very important for learning English: inputs and outputs. These two things are the keys to understanding English better and speaking it more confidently. In this episode, I'll explain exactly what they are, how they work, and why they are so powerful. You might be asking yourself, what are inputs and outputs? And why do they matter for learning English? Don't worry, I'll make it very simple and easy to understand. Whether you are just starting to learn English or have been learning for a while, this episode will give you a clear idea of how to train your brain to think in English naturally, without overthinking. Before we start, I want you to take a moment and think about how you learned your first language as a child. Did you first study grammar rules? Did you memorize long lists of words? Of course not. What you did was listen and absorb. You listened to your parents talking, watched people around you interact, and slowly, over time, you started to understand. Then one day, you spoke your first words. That is the power of input. Input is everything you hear and see in a language. It fills your brain with words, sentences, and expressions. And when you start speaking, using what you've learned, that is called output. Input and output work together. Input gives your brain material, and output lets you use that material to communicate. Now, imagine if learning English could be just as natural as learning your first language. Imagine learning English without struggling to remember grammar rules or vocabulary lists. The good news is you can do this. Many English learners feel stuck. They watch videos, read books, and listen to English speakers, but when it comes to speaking, they feel nervous or unsure what to say. If this sounds familiar, don't worry, you are not alone, and this episode is for you. This episode will help you break free from that struggle by showing you how to balance input and output in a way that actually improves your English fluency. This is not just about learning more English, it's about using English in real life. After all, we don't learn English just to pass tests. We learn it to communicate, express ourselves, and connect with others. I want to help you do that with confidence. So, what can you expect in this episode? Here's a quick overview. What is input? Why listening and reading are the foundation of learning any language. What is output? How speaking and writing help you become fluent. How to balance input and output so you not only understand English, but also use it comfortably. Common mistakes that slow down your progress and how to avoid them. Practical tips you can start using today to improve your English faster. By the end of this episode, you will have a clear strategy for learning English in a way that works. So stay with me until the end because these techniques are really powerful and can make a big difference in your learning. If you are serious about improving your English, this episode could be a game changer for you. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Fluent English Journey so you don't miss any helpful lessons. All right. Let's get started and explore the world of English inputs and outputs. Before we dive deeper into inputs, let's look at the Cambridge Dictionary definition of input. According to Cambridge, input is the information, ideas, or knowledge you put into your brain. In terms of learning English, this means everything you listen to and read in English. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, the word input refers to something like energy, money, or information that is put into a system, organization, or machine so it can work properly. In language learning, input means the English you receive and absorb, mainly through listening and reading. It's the information that enters your brain and helps you understand English before you can actually use it in speaking or writing. Let's look at an example of input in language learning. Imagine a child learning their first language. Before they start speaking, they spend many months just listening to their parents, watching facial expressions, and hearing words repeated again and again. Over time, their brain collects enough information or input, and one day, they start saying words like mama, or dog. The same thing happens when learning English as a second language. If you listen to English podcasts, watch movies, or read books, your brain stores new words, phrases, and grammar patterns. Later, when you start speaking, you naturally use what you've learned. For example, imagine Sarah wants to improve her English. Every day, she listens to an English podcast for 20 minutes and reads a short news article. At first, she doesn't understand everything. But after a few weeks, her brain starts absorbing new words and phrases. After a few months, she notices that she can understand conversations more easily and even use some of the phrases she heard in her own speaking. This shows that input is the first step to fluency. The more English you listen to and read, the easier it becomes to think, speak, and write naturally. That's why it's so important to expose yourself to English every day. What are English inputs? Now that we understand why input and output are important for learning English, let's focus on input. This is where everything begins. Without input, there can be no output. In simple words, input is any English you take in. It includes everything you hear or read in English. Whenever you listen to an English conversation, watch a movie, or read a book, your brain is collecting words, phrases, and sentence structures. This process is essential because before you can speak or write English, output, you first need to understand it, input. Think about how babies learn their first language. They don't start speaking immediately. First, they listen to their parents, watch their surroundings, and slowly understand the meaning of words. After months or even years of listening, they finally begin to speak. The same principle applies to learning English as a second language. You need input before output. The more English you listen to and read, the more familiar your brain becomes with the language. Over time, this will help you speak and write better, even if you don't memorize grammar rules or vocabulary lists. Why input is the foundation of language learning. Imagine trying to build a house without bricks. Sounds impossible, right? The same goes for learning English. Input is the foundation. Without enough listening and reading, it's almost impossible to speak or write English confidently. So, the key takeaway is, fill your brain with English first through listening and reading. Once your brain is full of English input, speaking and writing your output will come naturally. Input is like the bricks of a house. Just like bricks are needed to build a strong house, input gives your brain the materials it needs to form sentences, express thoughts, and communicate naturally. Many English learners struggle because they don't get enough input. Instead, they focus too much on grammar exercises or memorizing long lists of words without actually hearing or seeing those words used in real conversations. When this happens, English can feel unnatural, and it becomes hard to recall words when speaking. The more input you get, the more automatic English becomes. Instead of thinking about grammar rules while speaking, your brain will naturally form correct sentences, just like a native speaker does. This is why input is the foundation of fluency. The more you expose yourself to English, the more your brain absorbs it, making speaking and writing much easier. Types of input. Not all input is the same. There are two main types of input: passive input and active input. Both are useful, but understanding the difference will help you use them more effectively. 1. Passive input. Background listening. Passive input happens when you listen or read English without fully paying attention. For example, playing an English podcast while cooking or driving. Watching a movie with subtitles, but not focusing on every word. Listening to English music in the background. Passive input is useful because it keeps your brain exposed to English sounds and rhythm, even if you don't understand everything. Over time, your ears get used to the natural flow of English, which makes it easier to recognize words and phrases. However, passive input alone is not enough. While it helps you become familiar with English, it won't make you fluent unless you also practice active input. 2. Active input, listening and reading with focus. Active input happens when you fully concentrate on what you are listening to or reading. For example, listening carefully to an English podcast and trying to understand every word. Watching an English video without subtitles and noticing how sentences are formed. Reading an English book and looking up new words to understand their meaning. Active input is powerful because it forces your brain to process English deeply. When you actively listen or read, you notice patterns, new words, and sentence structures, which makes it easier to remember and use what you learn in real conversations. The best way to improve your English quickly is to combine both passive and active input. Passive input helps you get used to English naturally, while active input helps you understand and remember new things better. Practical examples of how input improves language skills. Let's look at some real-life examples to see how input helps. Example 1. Learning through listening. Imagine you listen to an English podcast every day while commuting to work. At first, you might only understand a few words. But after a few weeks, your ears start recognizing more words and phrases. Soon, you can understand full sentences without translating them in your head. After a few months, you notice that you can answer simple questions in English more confidently. This happens because your brain has absorbed enough input to form responses naturally. Example 2. Learning through reading. Now, let's look at another way input helps you learn English, reading. Imagine you decide to read a short English story every night before bed. At first, it feels difficult, and you often need to check the dictionary to understand new words. But as you keep reading every night, something amazing happens. You start recognizing more words, understanding sentences faster, and noticing how grammar and expressions are used naturally. After a few months, you may notice that your writing has improved. This is because your brain has collected enough input from reading to use words and sentence structures naturally. You don't have to memorize rules, it just happens automatically. These examples, listening to English every day and reading English stories, show how consistent exposure to input gradually improves your speaking and writing skills. How much input do you need to improve? A common question is, how much input do I need to see real progress? The answer depends on how often and how well you expose yourself to English. Here are some general estimates. If you listen to 30 minutes of English every day, you will start seeing improvement in about 3 to 6 months. If you read for 15 minutes daily, your vocabulary and sentence understanding will improve in a few months. If you combine 1 hour of listening and 30 minutes of reading every day, you can reach a conversational level in about a year. These numbers aren't strict rules, but they show an important truth. The more input you get, the faster you improve. If you want to become fluent, aim for at least 1 hour of English input every day. Input is the fuel for your English learning journey. Without it, you won't have the materials needed to speak and write confidently. Remember, combine passive input, like background listening, with active input, focus listening and reading, and try to get at least 1 hour of English exposure every day. In the next section, we will talk about English output, how to use what you've learned to improve your speaking and writing. English output. Definition of output. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, the word output means the amount of something that is produced by a person, machine, or system. In language learning, output refers to the English you produce, mainly through speaking and writing. It is how you express your thoughts and ideas after receiving input. Without output, you might understand English, but you could struggle to communicate effectively. Example of output in language learning. Think of it like a musician. Imagine a musician who listens to a lot of songs, but never plays an instrument. They may recognize music, but they cannot create their own. Similarly, in English, if you only listen and read but never practice speaking or writing, you will understand the language but won't be able to use it fluently. For example, let's take John. He has been watching English movies for months. He understands many words, but when it's his turn to speak, he feels nervous. To improve, John starts practicing speaking out loud every day and writing a short journal in English. At first, he makes mistakes, but over time, he becomes more confident and fluent in expressing his ideas. This shows that output is necessary for fluency. The more you speak and write, the more comfortable you become using English in real situations. So don't be afraid to practice every day. Even small efforts count. Mistakes are part of the learning process. Before we dive in, remember this. Making mistakes is normal and essential for learning English. Every mistake is an opportunity to improve. What are English outputs? Now that we've talked a lot about English input, it's time to focus on the second half of the language learning process, output. While input is about absorbing English through listening and reading, output is about using English through speaking and writing. Many learners spend most of their time on input because they feel nervous or afraid of making mistakes when speaking. But here's the truth. Without output, you cannot become fluent. Speaking and writing help you turn passive knowledge into active skills. They allow your brain to practice using the language, so it becomes natural when you need it. In this section, we'll define output, explain why it is necessary, explore different types of output, and see how using English regularly improves your fluency. Definition of output: speaking and writing. Output means producing English, not just understanding it. There are two main types of output. 1. Speaking, using your voice to communicate in English. This includes conversations with others, answering questions, giving speeches or presentations, even thinking out loud in English. 2. Writing, expressing your thoughts through text. This includes writing essays, sending emails, posting on social media in English, keeping a personal journal. Think of output as a workout for your brain. Just like athletes train their muscles to get stronger, you need to practice speaking and writing to strengthen your ability to use English naturally. Without output, you may understand English well, but struggle to express yourself when needed. That's why practicing output regularly is essential. Why output is necessary for fluency. Imagine you are learning to swim. You watch videos, read books about swimming techniques, and observe professional swimmers. But if you never actually get into the water, can you truly learn how to swim? No. You have to practice in the water. The same rule applies to English. Fluency doesn't come from just listening and reading, it comes from using the language. Here's why output is so important. It helps you remember more. Speaking or writing forces your brain to recall vocabulary and grammar rules, strengthening your memory. It builds confidence. The more you use English, the more comfortable you become. Over time, you'll feel less nervous in real conversations. It highlights your weaknesses. When you speak or write, you notice which words or grammar rules are difficult for you, helping you focus on improving. It trains you to think in English. Regular speaking and writing reduce the need to translate from your native language. Many learners avoid speaking because they feel shy or afraid of making mistakes. But remember, mistakes are part of learning. The more you practice, the better you will become. Types of output. Just like input, output comes in different forms. There are two main types. 1. Planned output. This happens when you prepare before using English. Examples include writing an essay, preparing a presentation, practicing answers before a meeting or class. Planned output is useful because it gives you time to think, organize your thoughts, and use English carefully. 2. Spontaneous output. We can continue explaining this next, along with practical tips and examples. Planned output. Planned output happens when you prepare before using English. This includes writing an essay for an exam, preparing a presentation for work or school, drafting an email to a colleague or friend. Planned output is great for organizing your thoughts and improving your writing skills. Since you have time to think, you can focus on using correct grammar, new vocabulary, and clear sentence structures. One effective way to practice planned output is keeping a daily journal in English. Writing just a few sentences every day about your thoughts, experiences, or plans helps you express yourself clearly. Over time, this habit builds your confidence and strengthens your writing skills. Spontaneous output. Spontaneous output happens when you use English in the moment without preparation. Examples include talking to a friend in English, answering a question in class without thinking too much, speaking English while shopping, traveling, or doing daily activities. This type of output is essential for fluency because real-life conversations rarely give you time to plan your words. Speaking spontaneously forces your brain to think quickly in English, helping you respond naturally. At first, it can feel difficult. You might forget words or make mistakes, but that's completely normal. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. A great way to improve spontaneous speaking is talking to yourself in English. For example, while cooking, you can say, "Now I am cutting the vegetables. I need to boil the water." This simple practice helps you form sentences naturally and think in English without translating from your native language. Balancing input and output. Many learners make one of two mistakes. They focus too much on input, listening and reading, but avoid output, speaking and writing. They practice output a lot, but don't get enough input to know what to say. To improve quickly, you need a balance between both. A good guideline is 70% input, 30% output. Spend most of your time listening and reading, but also practice speaking and writing regularly. Even if it's just for a few minutes, try to speak or write in English every day. Use what you learn. If you learn a new word or phrase from a book, try using it in a sentence or conversation. Think of language learning as a cycle. Input, listening and reading. You absorb new words, phrases, and grammar. Output, speaking and writing. You use what you learned, which helps you remember it better. The more you repeat this cycle, the faster you improve. How output improves retention. Let's look at some real-life examples to see how output helps improve language skills. Example 1. Speaking practice. Maria is learning English. She listens to podcasts every day but never practices speaking. One day, she tries to have a conversation in English and struggles to find the right words. She realizes that just listening isn't enough. She needs to practice speaking. So, Maria starts speaking English for 10 minutes every day. She talks to herself, records her voice, and practices conversations with friends. After a few months, she feels more confident and fluent, and speaking becomes much easier. Example 2. Writing practice. John wants to improve his English writing skills. Example 2. Writing practice. At first, John struggles to form sentences and his grammar is weak. But he decides to write one short paragraph every day about his life. He also asks a teacher to correct his mistakes. After 3 months, John notices that his writing is clearer and more natural. He remembers grammar rules more easily because he has used them repeatedly in his writing. These examples show that actively using English is the key to improvement. The more you practice, the better your brain becomes at forming sentences naturally. Output is a crucial part of language learning. Without speaking and writing, you cannot become fluent. Simple challenge to practice output. Here's a simple way to start practicing output every day. Speak for 5 minutes in English daily. Talk to yourself. Describe what you are doing or record your voice. Write 3 to 5 sentences in English every day. Keep a journal or write about your day. If you do this consistently, you will notice huge improvements in fluency over time. In the next section, We'll discuss how to combine input and output effectively to maximize your progress. The best way to balance input and output. Now that we've discussed English input and output, the next question is, how do we balance them effectively? Some learners spend too much time listening and reading but rarely speak or write. Others practice output a lot but don't get enough input to know what to say. The key to mastering English is finding the right balance between both. In this section, we will cover how to create a daily routine, example schedules for different types of learners, how to mix input and output effectively, why consistency is essential for fluency, how to make a daily routine for input and output. A good English learning routine includes both input and output every day. Even if you have only a little time, you can use English in different ways. Here's a simple structure for your daily practice. Start with input. Begin your day by listening to an English podcast or reading a short article. This helps you absorb new vocabulary, phrases, and sentence structures. Move to output. After listening or reading, try to speak about what you learned or write a short summary. This helps you activate the knowledge you just absorbed. Mix short and long sessions. You don't need to study for hours. Even 5 to 10 minutes of speaking and writing daily can be effective if done consistently. Make it fun. Choose topics that interest you. If you love sports, listen to sports podcasts in English. If you enjoy cooking, read English recipes and describe them in English. Be consistent. Learning English is like exercising. A little practice every day is more effective than long sessions once in a while. Example schedules for different learners. Everyone has a different lifestyle. Let's see how students, workers, and busy people can balance input and output in their daily routines. 1. English learning routine for students. Students usually have more free time, so they can include focused English learning in their schedule. Morning input. Listen to a podcast or read a short English article to start the day with new vocabulary. Example daily schedules for different learners. Everyone has a different lifestyle, so it's important to create a routine that fits your day. Here are examples for students, workers, and busy people. 1. English learning routine for students. Students usually have more free time, so they can include focused English practice in their schedule. Morning input. Listen to an English podcast for 15 minutes while getting ready for school. This helps you absorb new vocabulary and sentence structures. Afternoon output. After classes, write a short paragraph about what you learned today. This activates your brain and reinforces new knowledge. Evening input and output. Watch a TV show in English for 30 minutes. Repeat some sentences aloud to practice pronunciation. Extra tip: join an English conversation club or find a language partner to practice speaking regularly. 2. English learning routine for workers. Even with busy schedules, workers can still practice English by using free time wisely. Morning input. Listen to an audiobook or podcast on the way to work for 20 minutes. Lunch break output. Write a short message or email in English to practice writing. Evening input and output. Watch an English video for 20 minutes, then summarize it aloud in your own words. Extra tip: if you work in an English-speaking environment, try speaking in English with colleagues whenever possible. 3. English learning routine for busy people. Even with a tight schedule, you can practice English in small ways. Morning input. Read an English quote or news headline for 5 minutes. During the day, input and output think in English while doing daily activities. For example, say to yourself, "Now I am making coffee." Evening output. Record a 1-minute voice message in English about your day. Extra tip: use English learning apps during short breaks or while waiting in line. How to improve fluency with a mix of input and output. To speak fluently, you need both input and output working together. Here are some effective techniques. Shadowing. Listen to a sentence and repeat it immediately. This improves pronunciation and fluency. Speaking after reading. After reading an article, explain it in your own words. This trains your brain to form sentences quickly. Writing and speaking together. Write a short story, then read it aloud. This reinforces sentence structures and builds speaking confidence. Use the 1-to-1 rule. For every 10 minutes of listening or reading, try to speak or write for at least 10 minutes. This ensures you are producing English, not just absorbing it. The importance of consistency. Consistency is the secret to fluency. Even 15 to 30 minutes per day is more effective than studying for 3 hours once a week. Why? Language learning is like building a habit. Daily practice helps your brain retain information better. Example: Anna practices English for 15 minutes every day. She listens to short podcasts, writes simple sentences, and speaks a little each day. John studies English for 3 hours once a week, but doesn't practice in between. After 3 months, Anna has improved her fluency because she uses English daily, while John struggles because he forgets what he learned between sessions. Key lesson: small, daily practice is more powerful than irregular, long study sessions. A perfect English learning routine. A perfect routine includes listening and reading. Input: absorb new words, phrases, and sentence structures. Speaking and writing. Output: use what you learn to make it active. Daily practice. Even just a few minutes each day leads to big improvements over time. Fun and interesting topics. Choose materials you enjoy to stay motivated while learning English. If you love sports, cooking, or movies, use content related to your interests. This makes learning more fun and sustainable. Challenge for you: try creating a daily schedule that includes both input and output. Start with just 10 minutes of speaking or writing every day, then gradually increase the time. By balancing input and output, you will become a more confident and fluent English speaker. Keep practicing, and you'll see progress faster than you expect. Common mistakes and how to avoid them. Learning English is a journey, and like any journey, there are obstacles along the way. Many learners make common mistakes that slow down progress without realizing it. Some focus too much on input and not enough on output, while others do the opposite. Some rely too much on passive learning, and others are afraid to make mistakes when speaking or writing. In this section, we'll discuss these common mistakes in detail and provide practical strategies to avoid them. Mistake number 1: too much input, too little output, and vice versa. Many learners focus only on input. They listen to English podcasts, watch TV shows, read books, but they never practice speaking or writing. This is a problem because understanding English is not the same as using it. If you don't produce English, you will struggle to communicate when you need to speak or write. On the other hand, some learners focus too much on output. They try to speak all the time but don't spend enough time listening or reading. This can lead to poor sentence structures, limited vocabulary, because they don't learn enough from native speakers. How to fix it? Follow the 1-to-1 rule. For every 10 minutes of listening or reading, speak or write for at least 10 minutes. Summarize what you learn. After listening to a podcast, talk about it in your own words. After reading an article, write a short summary. Use English in daily life. If you hear a new phrase, try using it in a conversation or writing it in a sentence. Balancing input and output helps you develop all language skills effectively. Mistake number 2: over-reliance on passive input. Passive input is when you listen or watch English without paying full attention. Examples: playing English videos in the background while doing chores, listening to podcasts without focusing. While this can be helpful, it is not enough to improve fluency because your brain is not actively processing the language. Think of passive input like watching someone cook without cooking yourself. You might understand the process, but you won't be able to do it well when it's your turn. How to fix it? Turn passive input into active learning. Repeat words and phrases aloud. Try shadowing. Repeat after the speaker. Take notes. Write down useful expressions from podcasts or videos and use them later. Engage with the content. Leave a comment in English on YouTube or write a short opinion about an article. Active input helps your brain absorb more, allowing you to improve faster. Mistake number 3, fear of making mistakes in output. Many learners are afraid to speak or write because they don't want to make mistakes. But here's the truth. Making mistakes is normal and necessary. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn and improve. The more you practice speaking and writing, the more confident and fluent you become. Start small, keep practicing consistently, and gradually, mistakes will feel less intimidating. Overcoming the fear of making mistakes. Many learners hesitate to speak or write because they are afraid of making mistakes. This fear slows down progress and prevents improvement. The truth is, mistakes are a natural part of learning. Even native speakers make them. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall many times, but they never stop trying. Learning English works the same way, through trial and error. How to fix it? Accept mistakes as normal. See errors as opportunities to learn and improve. Practice with a supportive partner. Find a language partner, tutor, or friend who encourages you to speak without fear. Record yourself speaking. Listening to your own voice helps you notice areas for improvement over time. Write daily. Start with short, simple sentences. Over time, your writing will improve naturally. The more you practice, the more confident you will become. Don't let fear stop you from using English. Mistakes are actually proof that you are learning. Final thoughts on avoiding common mistakes. The best way to improve English is to balance input and output. Stay actively engaged. Embrace mistakes as part of learning. Listen, read, speak, and write every day. Don't just absorb English, use it. By avoiding common mistakes and applying these strategies, you will become a more confident and fluent English speaker. Keep practicing and success will follow. Summary of key points. English inputs. Listening and reading are the foundation of language learning. The more you expose yourself to English, the more natural it will feel. Balance passive and active input for best results. English outputs. Speaking and writing are the key to fluency. Regular practice builds confidence and improves your ability to express thoughts clearly. Balance between input and output. Too much input without output. You understand English but struggle to communicate. Too much output without input. Limited vocabulary and accuracy. Common mistakes. Focusing too much on one skill. Relying only on passive learning. Fear of making mistakes. The solution: take action, stay engaged, and embrace mistakes as part of the process. Taking action. Knowledge alone isn't enough. You must practice every day. Even small steps make a big difference. Listening to podcasts, watching videos, reading books, speaking or writing for just 10 to 15 minutes a day. Remember, every mistake is a step toward fluency. Stay consistent and enjoy the learning process. With daily practice, your confidence and English skills will grow faster than you expect. Make learning English fun. Learning English doesn't have to feel like a chore. The key is to make it fun and interesting. Watch movies, TV shows, or YouTube videos that you love. Talk about topics that excite you, like sports, cooking, music, or travel. When you enjoy what you are learning, you are more likely to practice consistently and improve faster. Challenge yourself in a positive way. Try small goals every day. For example, speak in English for 5 minutes, write a few sentences about your day, or summarize an article you read. Celebrate small victories, because every step forward brings you closer to fluency. Resources to keep improving. If you want to keep growing your English skills, there are many helpful resources available. Podcasts and YouTube channels. Listen to English learning podcasts like this one and follow channels that focus on simple, clear English. They help you improve listening skills, learn new words, and hear English used naturally. Books and articles. Read English books, online news websites, blogs, or graded readers if you are a beginner. Reading regularly exposes you to new vocabulary and sentence structures and helps your brain absorb English naturally. Flashcard apps. Use apps like Anki or Quizlet to remember new words easily. Review them daily to keep your vocabulary growing steadily. Daily speaking and writing practice. Keep a journal in English or record yourself speaking for a few minutes each day. This helps you practice output and gain confidence in expressing your ideas. Choose the resources that work best for your level and interests and use them consistently. Consistency is more important than long hours of study. Take the next step. Now it's time to take action. If you found this episode helpful, here are some things you can do right now. Subscribe to our channel, Fluent English Journey, so you never miss new episodes. Like this episode and share it with other English learners who might benefit from it. Leave a comment and tell us, what was your biggest takeaway from this episode? What is one action you will take today to improve your English? Challenge yourself today. Make a simple plan for this week. How will you practice input, listening, and reading? How will you practice output, speaking, and writing? Write it down and start today. Even small steps will make a difference over time. Final words. Remember, fluency is not about being perfect. It's about communicating clearly and improving little by little. Keep going, keep practicing, and most importantly, believe in yourself. You already have everything you need to take your English to the next level. Stay motivated, enjoy the process, and trust that consistent practice will lead to real improvement. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.